Buckle up for a chilling deep dive today, folks. We're stepping into the unsettling world of Mary Bell, a case that really gripped 1960s Britain. And it still, fascinates and disturbs us even now.
Yeah, it gets under your skin, doesn't it? And what makes it even more unsettling is the setting, right? We're not talking about, like, dark alleys or some shadowy underworld. This is Newcastle.
Newcastle, England.
Exactly, in 1968. It just feels like a place where people believe children should be, well, innocent.
You said it. Picture this. A 10-year-old girl, seemingly ordinary, living a completely normal life. But just under the surface, there's this darkness. This darkness that would soon shatter this unsuspecting community.
And it all begins with a tragic death. 4-year-old Martin Brown.
Ah, so sad.
He's found dead in an abandoned house, and at first, there's just confusion.
Right, but
Authorities are stumped, very little evidence to work with, so the initial assumption is that it's some kind of horrible accident.
just a terrible, terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
But nothing that really points to anything sinister, right?
Right. Until Mary Bell comes into the picture, that's when things take a very sinister turn.
Oh, boy.
Her behavior after Martin's death was, well, unsettling.
Really? In what way?
She went to visit the Brown family and asked if she could see Martin's body.
Oh, my God.
It's the kind of request that sends chills down your spine, you know?
Absolutely. Like, what was she thinking? Why would she even want to?
It's like she was drawn to what she had done, like she couldn't detach herself from it.
Right, right.
And the unsettling behavior, it didn't stop there. The local nursery school, it was vandalized. And then there were these notes found. Some claimed responsibility for Martin's death. Some even went as far as threatening more killings.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the fear that gripped the community.
And the police, they were quick to dismiss those notes. They said they were pranks, just a horrific attempt to try and capitalize on this tragedy.
Yeah.
But it was no laughing matter. Just 2 months later, the unthinkable happens again. This time, 3-year-old Brian Howe is found strangled. This was different. This wasn't just a repeat.
It was worse.
The level of violence had escalated. It just sent shockwaves through what was left of this community's peace of mind.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
The brutality was different. It really surpassed what happened to little Martin. His body, it showed signs of this just frenzied attack, cuts, scratches, and get this.
What?
The letter M was carved into his torso.
Oh, my God.
That's chilling. It wasn't just about taking a life. It was about marking it, claiming it in this just awful, awful way.
It's like she wanted to leave her mark on the world, but in the worst way possible.
And as the investigation gets deeper, 2 young girls, Mary Bell and her friend Norma, they keep appearing in the investigation.
They were just around all of this.
It's like they were just entangled in it somehow, like their lives were becoming intertwined with the case.
Entangled how? Were they suspects?
Well, Mary was evasive. And Norma, she was almost excited about it all, She had this unsettling excitement, this fascination with everything. Just strange, their presence, everything about it just screamed that something wasn't right. And it's in this really tense atmosphere, all this suspicion that Mary, she makes a mistake, just a slip up, but it unravels everything.
Wow. Like a classic detective novel, that
Yeah.
one tiny detail that blows the whole thing wide open.
Exactly, you got it. During questioning, Mary, she tries to mislead the police, right? About what she saw the day Brian was murdered.
Okay.
She mentions seeing another boy with Brian, trying to throw them off her scent. But by doing that, she reveals something only the killer would know.
Ah, I see.
She mentions the murder weapon,
Which was?
a pair of scissors.
Yeah.
And that detail, that hadn't been released to the public.
So a tiny detail, but huge implications.
Huge. And of course, this leads to more intense questioning. And that's when both Mary and Norma, they start cracking under the pressure.
Really? How so?
Norma starts talking. She starts to implicate Mary in the murders.
And Mary, what did she do?
She admits she was there, at the murders, but she tries to pin it all on Norma. Says she was just a witness, horrified but helpless.
Oh, come on.
Oh, but the evidence told a different story.
Because they had her dead to rights with that scissors comment.
And that, coupled with her story constantly changing, her behavior, it all pointed to her as the one behind these awful acts.
Right, and this is where it goes from this local tragedy to a national story.
Absolutely. The trial, it just captivated everyone, horrified them too, of course. This 11-year-old girl on trial for murdering 2 little boys. Her face was everywhere.
It was the dawn of the 24/7 news cycle, and she became this This symbol.
Right, and with that came the sensationalism,
Yeah.
Mary was labeled evil born, like she was just born evil. They stripped away any idea of her being an innocent child. She was a monster.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. It's hard to forget a label like that.
It sticks with you. But something interesting happened in the courtroom. It added another layer to this whole thing. The court psychiatrists, they had a different take.
Oh, really? What was that?
Well, they examined Mary, right? And despite how awful her crimes were, they diagnosed her with classic symptoms of psychopathy.
Psychopathy at 11. Wow.
Yeah, and this started a huge debate. I mean, this was the 60s. People didn't really talk about childhood psychology the way we do now.
Right.
This idea that a kid, especially a girl, could be so cold-blooded it was almost impossible to understand.
So how did the jury deal with that? Did they think she wasn't responsible for what she did?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Did it make them see her as human, or did it just prove she was different? That this darkness can be hidden in a child? I don't know.
It's a lot to unpack, even now.
It really is. And their verdict. It showed how much they struggled with it.
How so?
They found her guilty, but not of murder, manslaughter.
Because of?
Diminished responsibility. They acknowledged what she did, but also that she might not have been in control.
And her sentence.
Detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. Basically, they left her fate up in the air.
Wow. An unsettling end to a really unsettling chapter. So they send her away, but there's this idea that maybe she can come back. What happens to Mary after this indefinite sentence?
12 years. That's how long she's in the system. And during that time, people stopped talking about it so much, but you still wonder, right? Can someone that young who did something so awful, can they really change?
It's the big question, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
when can we forgive something like that, if ever?
Yeah. And in 1980, she's 23. They decide she's okay to go free, give her a new identity, a clean slate, try to have a life without that past hanging over her.
Must be so hard to always be looking over your shoulder worried someone will recognize you.
It's a huge weight. And for Mary, it seems like the past, it just wouldn't let go. She had that anonymity, but the press, you know how it is. They can't resist a story.
Oh, they'll find you. And that's what leads to the saddest part of all this.
Mary's daughter.
Her daughter. Imagine, you're 14, right? No idea about this awful thing your family's past, and then boom, your whole world explodes.
Some newspaper, they track Mary down, put her name and face out there for everyone to see.
Just awful. For both of them, but especially the girl. She didn't ask for any of this.
The media was relentless. Cameras everywhere, questions she couldn't answer, turned their lives upside down. And this time, it wasn't just Mary facing it all, it was her daughter too, having to deal with her mother's past.
That's just heartbreaking. Like, some things, you can't outrun them.
It's true. And to try and protect them, the courts, they do something pretty big. They give Mary and her daughter lifelong anonymity. No one's supposed to know who they are, where they are, nothing.
Wow. So they're out there somewhere, still living with this.
The Mary Bell case, it really makes you think about human nature, what kids go through, if we can ever really forgive.
Can someone be born evil? Or is it what happens to them that makes them that way?
Yeah.
And when you're so young, do you even get what it means to kill someone? It's just, I don't know.
It sticks with you, that's for sure. Even after it's over, those questions don't go away. And maybe that's the point of it all. Mary Bell's story, it reminds us that some things, there's no easy answer. No happy ending.
Some wounds just don't heal. People like to say kids are innocent, but this case, it makes you wonder. Makes you look a little closer. And sometimes, what you find is more disturbing than you'd ever want to believe.